Welcome to Health Hacktivators with lifestyle medicine doctor, GP and longevity expert Dr. Alka Patel. This show will help you to discover a hidden health hacking code that unlocks your phenomenal potential for an outstanding health span, lifespan and wealthspan. The show features candid conversations with celebrities, influencers and industry icons, real-life stories and cutting-edge health activating advice that other doctors might not tell you. Discover why now is the time to join the strategic self-care revolution and experience the profound effects this will have on your personal and professional success. Now, here is your host, Dr. Alka Patel.
Before we get into today's show, please do support today's show partner, Youth and Earth. Youth and Earth have a range of products that I love to use myself to supercharge my metabolism, to support my health, and to slow down cellular aging. Just be sure you click the link in the show notes for exclusive offers which Youth and Earth are so generously giving for listeners of this show. Hi, hey, and hello, Health Activators. Are you ready to unlock your health activation code in 3 steps to make health decisions using data and devices? On today's show, I am asking 1 question, I'm reviewing 2 references, and I'm giving you 3 hacks so that activating your health is, of course, as easy as 1, 2, 3. So the 1 question that I'm asking today is, how do I improve my self-esteem? Now, you'll remember that last week I was talking to Stacey Haynes, the incredible creative director and producer for so many of our on-screen and on-stage productions that we love, like Britain's Got Talent and Strictly Dance Fever and The Lion King as well. And last week she was talking about how her son was bullied, how he was victimized at school. And then she went on to say that he rebuilt his self-confidence, which is why today what I wanted to do was talk about self-confidence and self-worth and self-esteem. So self-esteem, what even is that? Well, it's got 2 parts to it. There's the self part, which is everything really that makes you. It's what I like to call your esteem, S-T-E-A-M. So these are your sensations, your thoughts, emotions, actions, and memories, S-T-E-A-M, STEAM. Now, in combination, your sensations, thoughts, emotions, actions, and memories, they all make up the story of you. And then the second part of self-esteem is esteem. The word esteem, it comes from the verb estimate, which really then signifies this sense of judgment or evaluation. So if we put that together, then self-esteem is a judgment and an evaluation of your sensations, thoughts, emotions, actions, and memories. Now, there's this great book, a book on self-esteem, which is what I've based much of today's episode on. It's written by Joe Oliver and Richard Bennett, and I'll put the link to that in the show notes as well. But what Joe Oliver and Richard Bennett say is they say that we are obsessed with self-esteem. We're obsessed with self-worth and self-confidence, thinking, I don't have enough of it. How can I get it? I want more of it. And the problem with all of this is, well, it then leads us onto this quest to find confidence, this quest where we're seeking out confidence and esteem in the world. But the truth here is that even the simple idea that low self-esteem is bad and high self-esteem is good, that in itself just doesn't hold up, at least not as far as the history of humans goes. So let's do this. Let's go back in time. If we go back in time, what do we find? Well, we find that we were largely nomadic up until about 12,000 years ago. We were living in small groups, we were moving around the planet in hunter-gatherer bands, and we were equipped really with all of those individual skills that we needed for survival. I mean, simply put, if you didn't have those skills, you didn't survive. So we evolved with survival skills. And then what did we do? Well, we started planting. We started growing crops. That agriculture era was born. And so we had to then stay in one place simply to look after our crops. And so then settlements developed, and then we started to become more specialists. So then as villages and towns and cities grew, we developed this division of labor. So that meant that we stayed strong as a group, even though individually we really went from knowing everything for survival to becoming highly skilled in just a few areas. So to put that in context, for example, you could be really great at fixing a fractured humerus, fractured bone, but you might not have a clue about how to stand up in front of a crowd and do comedy. So what that means is that there are countless people, there's lots and lots of people in society who are better than you at lots of different things, which then, of course, very naturally, of course, leaves lots of room for feelings of inadequacy and those feelings of low self-esteem, low self-worth. That's what then creeps in and takes hold. But I just want you to pause here, because there is a beauty in this. And the beauty comes down to human cooperation. So what do I mean by that? Well, we do things together, don't we? We do things for each other. We tap into each other's skills. And it is this ability to cooperate that then compensates for all those things that we humans can't do very well. Like, I don't know, we can't breathe indefinitely underwater, can we? And that's simply because as animal species go, well, our senses as humans are not really that great. They're not really that acute. We're pretty fragile if you think about it. But we compensate for this. We compensate because we can cooperate at a higher level, which really is what sets us apart as the human race. It sets us apart from all other animals and all other species. So you may be wondering how have we been able to be so cooperative? Well, it comes down to our incredible language capability and our capability for abstract thinking, which is what keeps us safe. So think about crossing the road. Now, one day, someone taught you how to cross a road safely, and they didn't have to throw you in front of a bus in order for you to learn that. So what does this tell you? Well, it tells you that you can learn that roads are dangerous, and you can learn that roads are dangerous without even having to get run over. But here's what's important. What you really learned was to be anxious. You learned to be anxious about something that had never actually happened, which, if you think about it, when it comes to crossing a road, is a pretty helpful thing, don't you think? You see, Anxiety is what helps you cross a road safely. But the trouble here is that being anxious about things that have not even happened can also show up in very unhelpful ways. So worrying about maybe an upcoming event or avoiding something because your mind has said to you, it's bad for you, or worrying about what if or if only. All of these are very uniquely human experiences. I guess sheep, they don't worry about their past mistakes, do they? And if you've read Robert Sapolsky's book, he says in his book, which is today's second reference for today, he says, zebras don't get ulcers. Zebras don't worry, do they? So in as much as human language, your inner language, your outer words, they're a real gift. Language is such a gift. It also has a huge amount of control over your behavior, over your actions. And that's simply because we perceive the world through the filter of our thoughts. And our thoughts are built out of the words that we hear and the pictures that are in our head. So if we look back again at human history, thinking this some about spoken language, we had spoken language and then the written word came along. And what the written word has then meant is that ideas and stories, they've just gathered more and more pace to spread, and language has taken over society. And one of the consequences for us then, as very social creatures, has then been that we use language to compare ourselves to other people. So again, if you go back to the Stone Age, we lived in small groups, didn't we? Small groups, 30 to 50 people perhaps. And so your social reference group, the number of people that you compared yourself to, was pretty small. So it would have been much harder to look around the group and decide that you were inferior. But if you fast forward to now, and think about all those comparable people on social media, on TV, on billboards, in magazines, people in your place of work, everywhere around you, that number is easily thousands and thousands. So you can see how easy it is then to look around and decide that you're not good enough amongst this bigger sea of people. Because, well, as humans, we do have a deep-rooted need to belong. Belonging's part of your survival mechanism. And alongside that, then, we all have a deep-rooted anxiety if we don't belong. They're two sides of the same coin. So then a thought like, I'm not good enough, well, that's a pretty prime example of not belonging. That's the language of low self-esteem. That's the judgment side of self-esteem. I'm not good enough. That's a negative and it's a painful thought. And so then the perceived solution for this experience, well, what's that become? Is it's become this shift to positive judgments. So instead of I'm not good enough, it's I am good enough. It's I am capable. It's I've got this. And the antidote for low self-esteem, it's perceived, and I say perceived, to be high self-esteem. But I want to challenge that because this isn't really an effective strategy. So maybe let me rephrase that a little. Swapping negative judgments for positive affirmations, it is a good strategy as long as you believe your affirmations. And again, looking at some of the science, where there is a belief about an affirmation or a declaration, areas in your brain light up that are directly linked to action. So there is a direct connection, but there has to be believability. What you declare, what you affirm needs to be part of your identity for all of this to hold true. So then if you re-examine all the judgments that you make about your esteem, your sensations, thoughts, emotions, actions, and memories, and you replace them with positive things to push them in this upward direction of high self-esteem, then this can all be pretty hard to truly believe, and it can be even harder to sustain. Which is why I want to introduce you to a different strategy. Instead of talking about reaching for self-esteem, I want you to think about reaching for self-acceptance. What is self-acceptance? Self-acceptance is to see yourself not in all your positivity, but in all your complexity, in all the parts of your experience. So rather than fighting your self-talk in this attempt to feel good all the time, what you can do instead is make room. Just make room and space for your difficult feelings and your experiences, allowing them all to be present, whilst at the same time taking committed action in the direction that you want your life to go in. So what I've just described, well, this is the basis of a form of therapy called acceptance and commitment therapy, ACT. So I want to dive into this a little bit more and give you a tool which will help you practice self-acceptance by really understanding what drives your responses in any moment. So this is the data part. What would be helpful here? Okay, go grab a piece of paper. And what I'd like you to do is to draw a horizontal line across the middle and another vertical line down the middle of the page. So in essence, what you've done is created a matrix. Now, below the line is your internal experiences, and above the line are your external experiences. Your internal experiences, they're the ones that others wouldn't know about unless you told them. So these are your thoughts and your feelings. And your external behaviors, they're your observable behaviors. So they're the things that others can see, your actions. And then the horizontal line that goes through the middle, well, what that represents is moving towards and moving away. So moving towards on the right side and moving away on the left side. Moving towards means moving towards what really matters to you, what's important to you. And moving away means moving away from what matters to you, what's important to you. So now let's have a look at what information, how can you populate this matrix? What data, what information can you put into each quadrant? So think about a situation, a personal situation that you found yourself in, you might be in currently, where your sense of self-esteem is affected, this sense of self-worth or this feeling of self-confidence. So think about a situation where your sense of self-esteem is affected. Maybe it's a situation at work with a colleague or in your team. Maybe something's going on at home in a relationship, maybe in your own business where you're making decisions. Think about where your I'm not good enough story or your I can't do this story shows up. And quadrant one, which is bottom left, what unwanted thoughts and feelings are showing up? Write them in the matrix. Are you feeling anxious, perhaps sad, or angry, or confused? Are you thinking, maybe, how will I get through this? There's no way that I can do this. What are those unwanted thoughts and feelings? Those are in quadrant one. Write those in there, bottom left. Quadrant two is top left. What do you do? Think here about your actions. What do you do when your self-esteem story shows up? When you're not, I'm good enough, I'm not good enough, I can't do this story. When that shows up, what actions or behaviors would someone see? Maybe if I was following you around with a camera, what would I see when your self-esteem demons show up? Are you procrastinating? Are you eating a lot, perhaps? Maybe you're binge watching TV, or maybe you're not sleeping so well. Or you might be using alcohol or drugs more than usual. Some things might be helpful, some things might not. So what are your actions when your self-esteem story shows up? Then quadrant three, so that's bottom right. What matters to you? What's really important to you? What are your values? That's the compass that you hold that guides you. Is it fairness, recognition, adventure? Maybe it's humor or courage. Think here about your values. What matters to you? And write those down in quadrant three, that bottom right. In the context of this situation, what matters to you? And then quadrant four. So quadrant four is, what would the person you want to be, with all these values that you have, what would that person do in this situation? What towards moves could you make? What actions would you take if your values or the things that mattered to you, if they were prominent, if they were front and center? So that's the matrix. Those are those four quadrants. Whatever situation you're in, plug this into the matrix. Plug in your steam, your sensations, your thought, your emotions, your actions, your memory. Plug those into the matrix. Because by doing this, what happens is you get a very unique perspective on you, which means that despite any difficult thoughts and difficult feelings that show up, by making space for them, just by being aware of them, letting them be, it means that you can still make towards moves. You can still take actions that pull you in the direction of your values, so that you're making values-driven decisions rather than being held back, rather than making decisions that take you away from what you want. And then the final question to ask yourself, looking at this matrix, is who? Who is noticing all of you? Who's noticing your steam, your sensations, thoughts, emotions, actions, and memories? Well, of course, the answer is you. You are the observer of you, which means that your self-esteem demons, your self-esteem demon, it can still show up and it can still boss you around. It can still be that voice that's in your head, but it's just one part of you. Because it's from that observing place that you get to choose the action that you want to take, rather than your self-esteem demon choosing for you. So what happens, like most of the time, what happens is that we tend to move towards the things in life that we like or that we enjoy, things that make us feel good. And we tend to move away from the things that we don't like, the things that perhaps scare us or make us feel unhappy. And this is very logical. So it seems very logical, but it does have a drawback. Because if you think about perhaps a goal that you've achieved, that you are feeling really proud of, think about that goal that you've achieved, but go back to just before you started working on this goal. What did you feel? Now, you probably felt a mixture of things, maybe excitement, but also doubt or dread. I know for me, for example, when I decided I was going to do a TEDx talk, I was super, super excited. But at the same time, of course, those feelings of doubt, anxiety, a bit of nervousness, they kicked in. But think back to your situation. What goal did you achieve? I still went ahead and did my TEDx talk. So in spite of these less comfortable emotions, for your goal that you have now achieved, you persevered, didn't you? You completed your goal. And then vice versa, you've probably also experienced many times in your life where your negative esteem, like anxiety and doubt and fear, they talk you out of moving towards your goal. So for me, imagine if I'd talked myself out of doing my TEDx talk. What would that mean for you? Well, it would mean that life somehow became narrower. Potentially, you'd miss out on opportunities and experiences. So thinking about all of this together, really the message is, instead of thinking about increasing your self-esteem, I want more self-esteem, I wish I had more self-confidence, think instead about increasing your self-awareness as your route to increasing your self-esteem. So how do you do this? Well, a simple acronym, to sum up everything that I've mentioned so far, spells out the word self, S-E-L-F. S, start. Start with values. By focusing on what's truly important to you, you can increase your sense of self-worth and your sense of purpose. E, embrace. Embrace all your emotions. By accepting your emotions without judgment, you can increase your self-awareness and your self-acceptance. L, love. Love yourself. Treat yourself with kindness and understanding whenever you make mistakes or whenever you experience difficulties, because when you practice self-compassion, then you begin to accept yourself as you are. And F, S-E-L-F, focus. Focus on the present moment. Be more mindful, be more present, because by practicing mindfulness, you can increase your self-awareness and your self-acceptance, which, as I said, all then, of course, builds your self-esteem. So the key, again, to increase self-esteem is to increase self-acceptance and to make moves towards your values. Use your values as your compass to guide the direction that you want to journey in your life. And really, as you continue to use these towards moves, you'll start to change your relationship with your own self-esteem, because it is all about how you act. It's acceptance and commitment therapy. ACT is a very powerful tool for self-esteem. It's one that I utilize pretty much most days with my clients. So if you're listening to this thinking, I'd really like to explore this more deeply for myself, then of course, as always, you're very, very welcome to reach out, and I'm happy to have a chat with you as well to just help widen that experience of life instead of being held back by your self-esteem demons. So what about devices? What devices can be used to increase self-awareness? Well, there's a few examples that come to mind. One of these is mindfulness apps. So things like Headspace and Calm and Insight Timer, they can help you practice mindfulness, help you increase your self-awareness. You may have used some of these apps before. They help you with guided meditations and breathing exercises and other mindfulness practices. So mindfulness apps can certainly help you increase your self-awareness. There's also journaling apps. So journaling apps like Day One or Journey. What can they be used for? They can be used to record your thoughts and your emotions and your experiences. And we know that journaling can help you process your emotions and help you gain that insight into your thoughts and your behaviors so that you understand yourself better, become more self-aware. And then there's also mood tracking apps. So mood tracking apps like Mood Kit or like Mood Scope, they can be used to track your emotions and identify patterns in your mood fluctuations and your emotions as well. And again, by becoming more aware of your emotional states, you gain more insight into your own thought patterns and your own behaviors as well. So that's data, that's devices. So to sum up then, how can I increase my self-esteem? What do you need to decide to do? Well, decide to do it through self-acceptance. So here are your hacks again. S, start with values. E, embrace all of your emotions. L, love yourself. F, focus on the present moment. And use the matrix, use it as your tool to capture your data in relation to your STEAM, your sensations, thoughts, emotions, actions, and memories. And use mindfulness apps, journaling apps, and mood tracking apps to increase your self-awareness. So there you go. Making decisions, using data and devices to unlock your health activation code. I wish you a health activating day.